Hello, for computer security class as my term project, I chose to do a packet sniffer or a network analyzer. And in this video, I'll go over the code and explain the logic as quickly as I can. So the main logic is, I can show you on figures over here. So we have Ethernet frames, and inside the Ethernet frames we have IP packets, and in that we have the real data itself, which can be in TCP, UDP, or ICMP protocols. And at the end, the result of our program is going to look like this. We're going to analyze the Ethernet frame, the IP packets, and inside the IP packets we might have TCP, UDP, or ICMP, depending on the protocol, and we're going to get the data packet as well. So we're going to get, most importantly, the MAC addresses, destination source, and the IP addresses, target source, and that's mostly what we need. And so to go over the Ethernet frame, as we said, we get the MAC addresses and the ether type, which is going to be, well, in our case it needs to be 8, which is the internet protocol IP header format. And inside that we have the payload, or the data itself. And yeah, in here we move on to the IP header, and we're just going to need the IP address of the source and the destination from here, and then we're going to get the rest of the data as well. And the rest of the data is going to be, as mentioned, it will either be TCP, UDP, or ICMP, depending on the protocol, and it's going to look like this. So with that, the code is going to make more sense now. So if you move over to the code, and the Windows operating system doesn't let us to access some level of sockets, doesn't let us analyze them. So we need to run the program on Linux. And yeah, so let's go over the program quickly. We're using the sockets library, of course, and yeah, that's what's most important here. And yeah, we're going to set up a connection between our sockets, and we're going to get the destination address and the raw data. We're going to set the buffer size to the maximum, which is 65536. And firstly, we start off by analyzing the Ethernet frame, as mentioned. And from there, we will get the protocol, source MAC, and destination MAC. And then, well, we're going to analyze for IPv4 packets. For the Ethernet protocol should be 8. And if that's the case, we're going to look for IP protocols. If our IP protocol number is 1, we will analyze for an ICMP packet. If it's 6, we'll analyze for a TCP packet. If it's 17, we'll go for a UDP packet. Which, to go over it quickly, the ICMP packets are used to check network connections, basically. Most of the time we'll get TCP packets, which is what we use if we want to get ACK acknowledgement packets. If you want to know that the packet has reached this destination. UDP is mostly used for streaming data, such as videos and audio and that kind of stuff. And yeah, so as mentioned, we're going to work in functions. First, we unpack the Ethernet frame. Well, these parts are just for printing out the results, and we're actually going to work by these functions below. And yes, Ethernet frame is unpacked first after we capture them. we look for, well, after we get the destination MAC and the source MAC, we format the MAC address so we can read it. And yeah, after that we check for the protocol. We're hoping to get an IPv4 packet. Once we do that, we will analyze the IPv4 packet. Well, in here, most importantly, we need the header length, because whenever the header ends, the data itself is going to begin. So we need to keep an eye out for that. And yep, we'll get the source IP address, target IP address, and the data, which is the most important part of this function. And once we get the IP addresses, we'll format them once again, just like we did on the MAC address, and so it's more readable. And now we're gonna unpack the package according to its protocol. What that means is, depending on the ICMP protocol, TCP protocol, or the UDP protocol, we're gonna have different methods of unpacking the data. That's basically why we need different functions for all of those protocols, and that's mostly it. From there on, it's mostly the same thing. We'll be going for the data, which is the essential part of these functions. And this last function over here is just for formatting the data we get, and so it doesn't print out a one long line, so it will just cut out and then print on multiple lines. You'll see whenever we run the program. Let's try to do that. And to capture some packages, let's open up Firefox. Well, I'm running Linux on a virtual box, so it takes a while. And we started getting some packages. Let's stop it. And that's what the format looks like. Basically, we'll have the first the Ethernet frame, and then the IPv4 packet, and then depending on the protocol, well, here it's the TCP segment. And most importantly, we have the destination MAC address, source MAC address, and the port numbers, of course, and the IP addresses. And the data packets are listed over here, as can be seen. And that's mostly what it does. It's a basic packet sniffer. Thank you for listening.